Now we'll begin to create our high polygon model that we're going to use to project detail onto our low polygon model without increasing the polygon count of our game object. So in order to do this, first thing we want to do is we need to create a duplicate of this object and then hide our original game object. Let's go ahead and take care of that. Now come over here and open up your channel box layer editor. Again, it should be a tab on your right hand side if you've been following this series. If it's not over here, you can select this far upper right hand show hide channel box, and that'll bring up your channel box editor. All right. And you can dock it to the right hand corner so it's easier to deal with. Now at the bottom of our history, you can see all this right here is some of our P-cube scaling and settings. This is our transforms for our game object. And then below it you have the game object shape itself, and then you have all the inputs, the entire history of this object as we've worked with it. Since we're done sculpting this object, let's go ahead and get rid of this history before we move forward. So with the object selected, come up here and go up to Edit by Type and select History. And you can see that got rid of all that history there. If your Maya ever begins running slowly, like you're working on a model and you haven't really added a whole lot of detail to the object, what might be happening is your history has gotten too long. So you ever notice that your Maya is starting to run really slow? Select the object and just delete the history. Just go up to Edit, delete by type, and delete the history for the object, and that may cause your Maya to start running fast again. So that's one thing that you can do to increase performance. If you ever start noticing that Maya is just moving really slow and what have you. But below this history, what we have down here is we have our layers, and what we want to do is create a duplicate of this, then add that duplicate to a layer on its own so that way we don't have to affect our game objects. Let's go ahead and do that. Select the sword, and you can do this one of two ways. You can hit Control+D on your keyboard, and that'll create a duplicate. Or you can also go up to Edit, come down, and select Duplicate. All right, so I'm just going to select the object and hit Control+D on the keyboard. That's going to create a duplicate of it. If I were to press W on my keyboard, select one of these, and then just move it, you can see now I have two swords. Hit Control-Z. You don't want to move it because we're going to be projecting onto it, and they need to be pretty much on top of one another. So with one of the swords selected, I'll press Q on my keyboard to make sure I don't accidentally move it. I'll select one of the swords. I'm going to come down here, and in the layer box editor, I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to assign the selected object by clicking this button on the far right. All right, now I want to give this layer a name so I know what's inside of this layer. So I'm going to double click this layer, come over here, I'm going to call this my game. In fact, I'll call this the sword game obj for object. So this is the sword game object, and I'm going to give it a color to signify what it is. All right, now I can go ahead and hide that. Right, so now you can see that it's the one that's selected, and as I click V for visible, that's hiding it. Now with it hidden, I'm going to select my other high poly object. This is the one we're going to be adding some additional detail to it so we can project it onto the low polygon model. And I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to give it its own layer. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer and assign the selected object. And I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to call this the sword high poly. So, because I'm going to be adding extra detail to it, it probably won't be that high of poly because we're not going to need to add a lot of detail, and I want to try to keep this part simple. So go ahead and give it a different color. Instead of giving it the dark gray, I'll give it a lighter gray so I can tell that they're different. All right, so I'll go ahead and click Save. Click OK, and then you can see I can also hide it. Now there's also other options that you can do. If you notice, there's two boxes, so there's visible and not visible, and then you also have transparent, which kind of just puts it into wireframe. You can call it transparent if you want. And then you got R, which makes it a reference. That means if I have it on R, I cannot select it. See, I can't do anything to it. I can see it if I need it as a reference, but I can't do anything. And then you can just have it available as a normal object that you can edit with nothing checked. So I'm actually going to come over here, and with our sword game object, so I make sure I do not mess with it for right now. If I accidentally turn it on, I'm going to set it as an R. That way there's no way I can even fool with it. Even if I bring it back in, I can't even select it. So that'll keep that safe. So in the next video, I'm going to show you some interesting tricks as to how we can create geometry from edges in order to add a ring around this handle and then duplicate it multiple times So we can kind of make it look like there are several of these little ropes going around our handle here. So when we project it onto the low poly object, it just adds that extra little oomph to our handle. It'll just make it look really cool. If you have any questions or comments, please post below the video on brainpoof.com.